President Buhari inaugurates National Oil and Gas Excellence Center. President Buhari directs strict compliance with payment of taxes by foreign local companies. AFDB predicts Nigeria to grow by 1.5% in 2021. Oil prices dropped slightly Friday after advancing most of the week. This and more on Business Express today, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. My name is Musa Abubakar. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, and related government agencies to plug all revenue leakages by ensuring strict compliance of tax payments by foreign companies operating in Nigeria. A statement by Special Advisor to the President on Media Publicity, Femi Adesina, says the President at the First National Tax Dialogue ordered all government agencies to automate operations and ensure more synergy in advancing the interests of the nation in revenue generation. The President said he has directed all government agencies and business enterprises to guarantee FIRS access to their systems for seamless connection. He said Nigeria will continue to work with the inclusive framework to develop internationally acceptable rules for taxation of the digital economy. President of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, has given an insight into the yet-to-be-released 2021 African Economic Outlook. Akinwumi, who was at the Federal Inland Revenue Service First National Tax Dialogue in Abuja, says Africa's cumulative GDP growth is projected to recover to 3.4% as economies open up, with Nigeria poised to recover to a growth of 1.5% in 2021 and 2.9% in 2022.
It is crucial to ensure that the tax base expands. Given that over 60% of Nigerians are in the informal sector, priority should be given to support measures to move a large part of this from the informal to the formal sectors. Making tax codes simpler and reducing administrative burdens and formalities are important to move from informality to formality.
The FDB president noted that before the pandemic, 6 out of 10 fastest growing economies in the world were in Africa, but the pandemic caused a cumulative loss to Africa's GDP estimated at $173 billion in 2020 and a projected loss of $236 billion in 2021. Still on the economy, Fitch Ratings has warned federal government against repeated recourse to ways and means of financing from Central Bank of Nigeria. Fitch, in a report, warned that the sustained use of direct monetary financing could raise risks to macroeconomic stability, given the current weak institutional safeguards. But they expect the federal government to reduce its use of the facility in 2021. The report says the federal government directly borrowed 1.9% of GDP from the CBN to fund its fiscal deficit in 2020, estimated at 3.6% of GDP. Now, the federal government says it will spare no efforts at diversifying the nation's economy using the oil and gas industry as a pivot towards expanding revenues, enhancing the gross domestic product, generating employment, and effectively working towards eliminating poverty in the country. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while virtually inaugurating the National Oil and Gas Excellence Center of the Department of Petroleum Resources in Lagos. He urged all industry practitioners and relevant stakeholders to join his administration in the task of ensuring that Nigeria explore and exploit her enormous potentials for nation building.
This center will support the attainment of Mr. President's clear development imperatives for sectoral growth and the industry performance targets set by the Ministry for a fortified oil and gas sector.
Global economies were faced with unprecedented challenges and severe shocks in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic and the attendant consequences therefrom. However, we are emerging more resilient in 2021, owing in part to effort of the agencies of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, who work under my leadership to keep oil and gas production levels stable, optimize government revenues, and ensure domestic energy security.
Our guest to discuss on the new National Oil and Gas Excellence Center in Lagos, as well as oil and gas sector, is Mr. Balazaka, an oil and gas analyst. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Okay, the president said at the inauguration that the center will drive safety, value, and cost efficiency. Can you paint a picture for us?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I really appreciated everything about what the president did. You know, when you talk about National Oil and Gas Excellence Center, you are talking about a depository of knowledge. And the knowledge is not just local, but of a global standard. And you're talking also about the knowledge of a global commodity of high repute, which is oil and gas. So when he was talking about that, basically what he was saying is this: by the time we share and cross-fertilize this knowledge, then everything about the practice of oil and gas in Nigeria or in the Nigerian industry will be done in a cost-effective manner. It will be done in line with global standard. It will be done in line with safety, and it will make sure, I mean, everything that is being done keeps us on standards that every part of the world globally to have respect for us, because we will basically be sharing and cross-fertilizing knowledge.
Okay. What do you make of the center's location then? The center is located in Lagos, being that the NNPC is in Abuja and South is where we get the oil from.
No, when you talk about knowledge, I mean, as we speak now, I'm in Lagos, you are in Abuja. Oh. I can see you, you can see me. The oil and gas industry is a global industry. Oh. Outside that also, we are talking about technology now. Technology is global. But let me go a step further. Since we came into 2021, I know globally we've not exited at the pandemic, but I can see what Nigerian leaders are doing for the first time. I mean, we just finished talking about Nigerian Oil and Gas Excellence Center. I am aware that the final investment decision is almost or has been cleaned up on the Abuja, Kaduna, and Kanu gas pipeline project. You know, I'm also aware of the Train 7. You know, I'm also aware of the modular refinery that has just been commissioned. Most importantly, also, we passed the Finance Act. Apart from the Finance Act also, I noticed that the budget was passed on time. We also hope that the petroleum industry bill will be passed soon. All these can best be described as planting the seeds of future growth and development for Nigeria, which is fantastic. So we now have started planting the real seeds. The next thing will be, who are those who will take care of the seeds? How will they be watered? How will they be nurtured into maturity? And that is where we will now start calling on all those that will be assigned the responsibilities. Because I would not expect the president to be the petroleum engineer, to be the chief accountant, to be the medical doctor, or to be the environmentalist. All those Nigerians that may be assigned responsibility should make sure in national interest, we rally around, share, cross-fertilize Nigeria, knowledge, and place Nigeria on a path of progress, because we really want to grow our GDP. We want to improve our balance of trade. We want to improve our consumption index.
Okay.
And if the companies are doing fine, company income taxes will be paid.
Okay.
If the employees are doing fine, they will pay their own personal income taxes.
Okay. Should we then be optimistic that the center will address the challenges confronting the oil and gas sector?
Not necessarily, but the regulatory standards are those that will address challenges. And that's where we are talking about the petroleum industry bill. We hope that it will be passed soon. But when you have a center like that, there will be enough knowledge to share. There will be enough knowledge to pull from, and the knowledge will be of global standards.
Okay. The Nigerian content development is more than a decade now. What's your assessment of the indigenous companies? What is their contribution to oil and gas sector, and can it get better?
Yes, the board that is looking into the affairs of the local content is really doing well, because if you look at it, probably before we had the Nigerian local content board, say probably 30, 40 years ago, Nigerians were nowhere. But today you have Nigerians in fabrication, you have Nigerians in drilling, you have Nigerians in completion, you have Nigerians in production. The good thing about that board is this. Initially, when they started, they opened up the doors for Nigerians to come in, right? But at the moment, they are also sanitizing everything about service provision or providers among, so that if you're a service provider and you are a Nigerian, everything about your services must be of global standards. And very soon, we will get to a point where if you're providing a service, you won't be providing the service just because you are a Nigerian, but you can provide the service because you have what it takes to provide the service in the US, in the UK, in Saudi Arabia, in Canada, and anywhere globally.
Okay. Well, prices are actually picking up, and despite COVID-19, what policies do you think we should be making, and which ones should we be sustaining?
Well, like you saw, the Nigerian quota has actually been reduced, but it wasn't only limited to Nigeria. It is the entire cartel. And they wanted to do that so that they will have some good prices. But this is also where we have to talk about ourselves as Nigerians. The quota we always talk about is the quota for the international markets. If our refineries were actually to be doing well, then we will have been producing the ones that we will refine locally, and by the time we finish refining locally, we will consume locally, and we will free ourselves from import and exchange rate pressures. And if we do that, before you know, we will look at the West African sub-region, and we may be the ones supplying distillates to them. Before you know, we will even have depots across the continent or the countries of West Africa. We will be having our ports there. Before you know, we will be having our technicians, our engineers, and our accountants. And that is how you gain regional power. But the good thing the president said is this: we are going to look away and start investing in other areas outside oil industry. And that simply means once the petrodollars start coming in, dollars or currency will not tell you what to use it for. So it is time now we start developing our health sector and reduce health tourism. It's time we start looking at our educational sector and reduce capital flight or education tourism. It's time now we look into petrochemicals. Let us look at our gas, use that to drive the gas turbines, generate electricity, use the same natural gas, get ammonia, get urea, and produce fertilizer. So I really commended that. I just hope those who will be appointed or delegated will not disappoint the president and our country.
Okay, Mr. Malai, in one sentence, tell us what are your projections for Nigeria's oil and gas industry?
Well, the reserves are growing. The crude oil reserves are growing. The natural gas reserves have grown, and we have potential basins. You know, we have crude oil already in the prolific Niger Delta Basin. We have discovered crude oil in the Dahomey Basin around Lagos axis. We have discovered hydrocarbon in Anambra Basin. Recently, we discovered hydrocarbon in the Benue Trough. We are still hoping to discover something in the Sokoto Basin, Bida Basin, and the Lake Chad Basin. So in totality, the oil and gas industry and the future of Nigeria will be a booming one. We should just make sure we don't disappoint ourselves as Nigerians.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Balazaka.
Thank you.
Okay, turning attention to stock markets. Stocks bleed this Friday with virus spread in focus. Possibly Abel has global market update.
European stocks received for a lackluster handover from Asia Pacific, where markets mostly declined Friday as investors took profits following a strong spell fueled by hopes of substantial economic stimulus from the new U.S. President Joe Biden's administration. In the United States, Wall Street again saw the Nasdaq and S&P 500 notch record highs on Thursday, buoyed further by indications of a robust earnings season for the country's major communications and tech stocks. U.S. stock futures are pointing to a slightly lower open on Friday, however. Stocks in Asia Pacific fell on Friday as shares of oil giant China National Offshore Oil Corporation in Hong Kong saw heavy losses. Nikkei slipped 0.44%, Shanghai Composite 0.4%, and the Hang Seng Index 0.6%. It was a negative trend here in Africa as most of the stocks resumed on the low, aside Namibia's overall index and Ghana's GSA Composite, which posted gains. Bossade Able, Business Express.
Well, now the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed trade on a negative note Friday, 22nd January, as the all-share index depreciated by 0.24% to close 40,001.99 basis points, with market capitalization at 21.4 trillion naira. 591.4 million shares worth 5 billion naira traded in 5,767 deals, while Transcorp, Japol, and UBA led the top traders at the end of the session. 23 former central bank governors and former finance ministers from around the world are appealing to G20 to enact a debt relief for poor and developing countries, including Nigeria, to enable them tackle economic challenges associated with COVID-19. A statement signed by all the former central bank governors and former finance ministers says many developing countries are forced to deploy 30 to 70% of government revenues to pay off international creditors rather than pursue the broader challenges ahead. To this end, they call on the G20 and world leaders to provide debt relief to emerging market and developing countries with unsustainable debt burdens so that they can secure physical space to combat the virus, protect the vulnerable, and secure a green and inclusive recovery. Selected food prices watch data for December 2020 released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the average price of 1 dozen of agric eggs medium size increased year-on-year by 9.12% and month-on-month by 0.98% to 499 naira in November 2020, while the average price of piece of agric eggs medium size increased year-on-year by 11.49% and month-on-month by 1.43% to 45 naira 40 kobo in December 2020 from 44 naira in November 2020. The average price of 1 kg of tomato increased year-on-year by 17.51% and decreased month-on-month by minus 1.92% to 310 naira 10 kobo in December 2020 from 316 naira 16 kobo in November 2020. The average price of 1 kg of rice increased year-on-year by 19.80% and month-on-month by 0.17% December 2020. Similarly, the average price of 1 kg of yam tuber increased year-on-year by 12.89% and decreased month-on-month by minus 1.17%. Gold prices pull back after hitting highest levels in 2 weeks. Price movement for gold and other commodities is next. Now let's look at how Nigeria's currency is changing for other currencies. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Express. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTS channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now, and the hashtag is BizX. Join us again next week. I am Musa Abubakar saying please stay safe.